I work for a commercial cleaning company who specializes in cleaning up rundown, abandoned buildings and getting them ready for refurbishment. We were hired to clean out an old hospital that had been abandoned for some 20-odd years. My team, of which there were 3 of us, was assigned to the behavioral health unit, or more simply, the psych ward. While I was clearing out rooms of dusty old linens and mattress pads, I found an old marble journal tucked under one of the pads. I opened it and flipped through quickly and saw that it was about half filled with journal entries. I thought it was pretty cool, so I slid it in my back pocket so I could read it later and went back to work. Totally forgot about it until I got in the car and drove home. When I got home, I decided to read it, and what I found inside was terrifying, mostly because of the similarities between what was in the journal and what we'd been cleaning up earlier today. I'll go over the connections between what I found in the journal and what I saw today later, but before that, let me share the story. I'm going to try and stay as true to the writing in the journal as possible, so that means some things may be a little misspelled and some grammar might not be perfect. If it's underlined on the page, I'll underline it here. Written all in caps, I'll type it all in caps. So, let's get started. Day 1, 12 p.m. The ER nurse lied to me. She said I could leave after 3 days. The doctor here, though, she said she decides when I leave. She said I won't be out in 3 days. I don't want to be here. I don't belong here. Day 2, 11 a.m. I've been here 24 hours. I don't want to be here. I don't belong here. They do patient checks every 15 minutes. If you're in your room, they knock on the door. They don't care about the time. I can't sleep. They give me my meds and they say that I have mood stabilizers in them for me tonight. I miss Tera. I miss my bed. This is my world now. Day 3, 11 a.m. It's been 42 hours. I'm feeling a little better. I broke down last night. I played some Monopoly earlier and it was a lot of fun. After I broke down, I was given meds to calm me down. I laughed for the first time since coming here. Day 5. I'm okay. I'll be okay. Day 7. It's time to go home. They won't let me leave. I don't know why. I ask and they ignore me. Just want to go home. Day 10. There was a huge boom outside. None of the nurses reacted. They just carried on as normal. All I can see out the window is black smoke. Day 14. We found a nurse in the hallway this morning. He was dead. We've been seeing less and less each day, but since we found him, we haven't seen anyone else. Day 27. There hasn't been a single nurse or doctor or security or anyone at all since we found the nurse in the hallway. The door knocking hasn't stopped, though. Every 15 minutes, if a room door is closed, it will knock. Food still shows up. Meds are still showing up in the medicine window. Day 28. Gerald tried to jump through the window at the nurse's station. Something we couldn't see stopped him and dragged him back out. He was dragged all the way to the quiet room. We hesitantly followed and watched as he was hauled up into a slab bed. We watched the straps wrap themselves around him and tie him down. Then the room door slammed shut. That was this morning. It's almost lights out. We could still hear him screaming. Poor guy. I guess security is still here. Day 32. It's been over a month. We put the body of the nurse in Gerald's room, since he doesn't need it anymore. Gerald's still wrapped up down the hall in the quiet room. He's still screaming. I don't know how. Out the window is just smoke. Large, rolling, jet black columns of smoke, painting the sky a large swath of uncolor. We're still fed. I don't know where it comes from, but it always shows up at the end of the hallway and wheels itself down to us. Day whatever. It's been a while. A lot's happened. A lot of lights have stopped working. The knocking never does. Some of the windows have cracks in them. Don't know how. None of us could even scratch them. There's no more outside. It's just black. The smoke took over the sky weeks ago. I'm really not sure about time. Haven't seen natural light since. We only know days because the lights, what few we have left, dim for a bit every few hours or so. The water stopped getting hot a few days ago. With the lights, the windows, and now the water, it's almost like this place is dying. Gerald stopped screaming eventually. Still strapped down. We can see him moving from time to time, so we know he's alive. Don't know how he survives, but I do know that none of us want to piss off whatever's doing this. Day, I don't even know. We have to get out of here. Doris went into her room and the door closed behind her. It won't open. Something unseen dragged her to the bed and held her there. We watched as the bed made itself with her in it. That wouldn't have been so bad, except that when it was done, Doris was just a red smear between the sheets and the bed. There's not even a bulge where her body should be. She's just gone. The door stayed closed ever since. No one's brave enough to go in their room now. We're all just staying in the day room for now. Been a few days. I lost this book for a bit. It's not that strange. Sometimes stuff just goes missing here. We just assume it's the housekeepers that got it. Strange part is that I found it in Gerald's room, next to the body of the nurse. Now, he's just a semi-wet pile of meat and bones. No idea why that room won't clean itself. Lost a couple other folks to housekeepers. That's what we call what happened to Doris. Maybe we'll try to look in Gerald's room for more stuff we lost. Day after last entry. It was a bad idea. The nurse wasn't dead. I don't know how it could be. It was literally just a pile of meat and bones. And yet, we were in Gerald's room looking for lost stuff. Ron bumped the nurse's body and it jumped at him. It dug its bone fingers into his neck. A wet squelching noise accompanied it every moment. Ron strangled, gurgled, screamed, but he quickly stopped. I'm ashamed to say that we ran. We left him there, with the nurse thing still digging away at his neck. We closed and barricaded the door. Day, I don't know anymore. It's been a few days. I can still hear the nurse thing moving around in Gerald's room. Every now and again we hear wet slaps against the floor. The flies are terrible. Clark got taken by the housekeepers. A window broke out of nowhere. It just shattered. Some of the smoke came in, just a little bit. It's like a creeping miasma. It slithered its way across the ceiling and just sat there. We used a table to block the window and keep any more smoke from getting in. Now we're just watching it. Tay, who cares? We need to leave. Jenny decided to touch the smoke, and it grabbed her like a snake. A thin trail came out and coiled itself around her outstretched arm and down her body and dragged her into itself. It's unthinkable how such a small amount of smoke could consume somebody like that. I say consumed because that's what it did. It ate her. Not all at once, and not quickly. We tried to save her, tried to drag her back down to us. Even with all of us pulling, we couldn't get her to budge. I think I heard something in her pop, or break, or dislocate when we were pulling. But we couldn't save her, so we had to watch. We had to watch as it slowly pulled her into itself. There was no noise, except for Jenny's screeches and screams, but it did eat her, eventually. I don't think I'll ever forget her screams. We stay away from it now. It stays on the ceiling, moving around, but never comes down. We're now living in fear of yet another unexplained thing. Too long. The nurse No idea. Was he ever dead? Was he ever even human? Gerald is not dead somehow, but he's still strapped down. Doris, housekeeping. Aspen, housekeeping. Donald, housekeeping. Ron, the nurse thing. Jenny, eaten by the smoke. Daniel, eaten by the smoke. We're leaving. We've lost too many people to just sit here trying to survive. We've unblocked the window and hopped out. There's a small landing with an access hatch and a half-story below. I'm leaving this book here as a way to ensure that we're not forgotten. If you find this, I didn't live to come back for it. Goodbye. Note: this journal was found in the room of a mental patient who jumped out of his window to his death. I came back. I didn't write that. I don't know who did, but it wasn't me. I found this journal right where I left it. It's just me now. We didn't even make it out of the hospital. I came back because I'd rather die here, where at least I'm taken care of. We were exploring the hospital for about a week, I'd say. This place hasn't changed much. The black smoke is still here. It moves around the ceiling, following me. I feel like it's watching me, like a predator watching its prey. Not actively hunting, but just waiting for any little slip up so it can bag itself an easy meal. It won't be from me. I guess I should explain what happened and how everyone died. When we left, there were still 6 of us. Me, Jules, Richard, Alberto, Gwen, and Ray. I don't know what we expected to find when we left, but there was no way for us to guess what we saw. Narrator's note: the entire next page is full of scribbled out bits. Just woke up from a nap. Something more is going on. I took a nap after writing that last page, and when I woke up, I saw it was completely scribbled out. I didn't do that. I guess something didn't like what I had to say. I can't even remember what I wrote, honestly. I can't remember most of yesterday. This place hurts to be in. Hurts to think about. It just hurts. Good news, though. The food still shows up. It's been 2 days. I guess I'll try again to write down what happened when I left. Outside the window was a small drop down to an access hatch. We quickly filed out and fell down. I couldn't help but notice no more smoke made its way through the window. Even now, sitting here writing this, I don't have the window blocked. Doesn't much make a difference, if I'm honest. There's no weather. There's no wind. Everything is still. I don't hear any animals or bugs. No cars, no people. Just silence. The world is so empty. Back to what happened. We hopped down to the access shaft. We managed to open it and drop down to the floor below. I'd tell you what floor number, but I honestly don't know. When we hopped down, we were in a hallway. It was long and semi-lit. I guess the rest of the hospital was falling apart, just like our unit. Half the lights were either flickering dimly or just out. Still enough light to see what we were going through. The hallway had elevators on one side and a few rooms on the other. The rooms were labeled Radiology 1, 2, 3, and so on. Throughout the entire hallway was a low humming and beeping, the sound of medical equipment left on. Being all too familiar with house cleaning, we didn't dare go into any of the rooms. Gwen wanted to take the elevator, but the rest of us said no. There's no telling what horror that would lead to. Once we got our bearings, we chose a direction and started walking. It was dark. I could barely see the floor. I guess that's why we didn't notice at first. When we did notice, we were too terrified to move. We'd been walking for maybe 10 minutes. The hallway just went on and on. Every now and again we would pass a sign with an arrow and the word visitation on it, pointing the way we were going. Occasionally, we would come to a large intersection with multiple hallways leading off. It was in one of these intersections we noticed what was around us. All over the walls, were semi-dark stains, the color of dried blood. Everywhere on the floor we found wet piles of rotting meat and bones. Like our nurse thing. It's amazing how we didn't smell it, but once we noticed, it was all we could smell. It was horrible. Just thinking about it makes me want to puke, even now. Sorry, I had to go throw up. Caught a whiff of the smell. I didn't want to think about where it came from. Richard and Jules, we were stood in the intersection, surrounded by potential monsters. We had no idea how long these things could last like this. Hell, they were literally half rotted. Once we found our nerve, we decided to move on. It's honestly a miracle we hadn't bumped into a pile of them by now. Our luck couldn't last forever, though. In the dark confines of a particularly tight hallway, Richard lost his balance and ended up stepping on a meat pile. It instantly rose up and swallowed him. More an amorphous blob of meat and bones than anything resembling a human. His scream was quick, but loud. Loud enough to wake the dead. Unfortunately, that's not just an expression. Apparently noise also sets them off. Two more of the meat blobs suddenly launched themselves at the closest person. Jules was gone in an instant. The blobs fully enclosed her before she could even scream. Richard was a bit slower. We watched as whatever bones the blob had forced their way into and through him. A long bone through the neck, what looked like maybe fingers digging into his guts. A couple of ribs into his thigh. On and on. We watched in horror for what felt like hours, too scared to move. When he finally stopped moving, we managed to collect our senses and run. Gwen. A few days later, we had moved a few floors down via the staircase. We were never able to take one the entire way. There was always a blockage forcing us out into the hospital proper. Through more halls and rooms, we weren't sure that we could make it out. Gwen was leading us through the hall. She took a turn, and all we heard was the faintest squeak. Then nothing. We waited around the corner for a while before carefully peeking our heads out. About a foot from where the wall turned into a massive wall of black smoke. Floor to ceiling, wall to wall, there was no way through. Gwen must have walked right into it, gone before she even realized it. Poor kid. Ray had the worst fate of anyone, except maybe Gerald. Ray was leading the remains of our group, just Alberto, me, and Ray, through the kitchen. This was about a day after Gwen, and we were walking through the kitchen, past stoves and burners and rotten food. Ray saw something on the counter, I still don't know what, and reached for it. His hand was cut in half, all 4 fingers gone to the knuckle. Next, the skin on his arm was peeled off, like skin on a fish. He watched his arm get sliced into small sections, unable to move. Alberto and I tried to pull him away, but we couldn't. After his arm, Ray was haphazardly thrown onto the counter, and the rest of his body was cut up, prepared like meat at a butcher shop. Saw a few pieces get flung into a pot on the stove before Albert and I ran while the cooking went to work on the rest of Ray. I skipped my meals the next few days after I got back, just in case. Alberto was just unlucky. After what happened to Ray, we decided to go back to our unit. It was all too much. Alberto and I quickly backtracked. A few days later, we found a staircase that said, "To BHU Psych." We were almost back. Running up the stairs, Alberto didn't notice a blob on the next step up. Stepped right on it. Of course, it launched itself onto him. It ended up tackling Alberto over the railing and down into the empty central column of the staircase. They fell, Alberto and the blob. They fell what must have been 10 stories. Of course, we couldn't have been that high up. I watched them tumble down, the blob ripping chunks out of him. Then I noticed what was at the bottom. A roiling, bubbling, almost boiling pool of black smoke. All the way down, Alberto and the blob were plummeting towards it. He fell quietly. The meat blob fell in, and everything was the opposite of silence. How I got back. I guess these things don't like each other. When the meat blob fell into the black smoke, at first there was a blinding light. I can't describe the color. It was beyond white. That's all that comes into my mind when I try to recall what it looked like. Beyond white is the best I can do. With the light came the noise. It was deafening. The sound of flies buzzing so loud I couldn't hear myself scream. I was lucky to open my eyes quickly enough to see the black smoke rocketing up towards me. Quickly threw myself back against the wall as the smoke shot up past me and continued on upwards, filling the central column. I admit it took me longer than I'm proud of to regain control of myself. The light, the noise, the powerful wind from the rush of smoke. It was almost too much. I felt the smoke glaring at me. It was angry. It wanted to eat. But it was hurt. If I was more of an action hero, I would maybe do something with that information. But I'm not. So I ran. I ran up the stairs as fast as I could. I ran through the door marking floor 3. I ran through the halls, following the signs for the BHU, thanking whatever power above that all these doors were unlocked. I crashed through the twin doors leading back to where this all started. I collapsed onto the floor, finally feeling some semblance of safety. I don't know how long I was out for. I only realized after I woke up. All the doors that were unlocked, they all locked behind me as I ran. Now I'm stuck here again. It's been a few days, and I'm alone. Gerald's still here, of course, still strapped down. He's a little more than skin and bones now, but he's still moving. Water's still cold, window's still broken, smoke still follows me, food still rolls down the hall towards me. I did learn something through all of this, though. The realization of false hope is more damaging than no hope at all. So for now, I'll just live here with no hope of getting out. I'll be okay. That's the whole story. Pretty creepy if you ask me. When I was cleaning up earlier today, I noticed the ceiling was smudged with long black smoke stuff. Windows were cracked, with one window leading to an access hatch broken open. In the solitary holding room, I guess that's what they call the quiet room, there was one bed with its straps still tied down. Nothing on the bed, though. Few of the rooms had linen that were completely stained with something. Honestly, couldn't tell you what. Walking through the hospital, I also noticed a lot of stains on the floor. I can't say for certain, but I've had to clean up dead bodies before, and the stains in the hospital looked exactly like the kind of stains a body leaves when it's left to rot for a long time. After reading that, and comparing what happened in the journal with the kind of mess I found, I'm honestly considering calling out tomorrow. Maybe even just calling out for however long it takes to finish cleaning the hospital. My name doesn't matter. I don't know anywhere else I can post this. I do evictions and repossessions for landlords. I know, scum of the earth. That's why my name doesn't matter. The last house we had a job at, all the tenants had just up and vanished without telling the landlord, and enough time had elapsed that we were set to clear out all their stuff. I happened across the following account that had been scribbled into a notebook and left in the basement. I won't say anything else except, well, just read it for yourself. My name is Sam. Please consider these my final words. It's been 3 days since the party, and I don't know how much longer my food or my sanity will last. He, or whatever it is at this point, has been knocking at my door for the past 3 days, punctuated only by the whispered attempts to convince me to open up. And the singing. The goddamn singing. My phone is dead and the internet has been shut off, along with the power to the basement. I don't know why I'm scratching this account out, probably just to have something to occupy my mind while I wait for the end. I feel like I should be scared, which at one point I suppose I was, but now it's just the constant dark, the endless knowing, the tiny flame from my lighter as I sit here waiting. Just waiting. I live in a house with 3 roommates. Well, maybe 3, though I suspect none of them are left at this point. I lived with my 3 friends, Raelyn, Ned, and Amy. Raelyn and Ned were philosophy majors like me, who I knew through a shared class. When a few months ago, the 2 of them asked me if I wanted to move into the house that they were renting, I jumped at the chance to live in a house that promised to be full of good conversation. Oh, right, and Amy's Ned's girlfriend. I can't remember her major at this point. Nursing, maybe. Not that it matters. It's an old house, built in the 40s or 50s, on a drained swamp, smack in the middle of Edmonton, near a mall, the university, Wyatt Avenue, and the train station. The location is great. It was only $2,000 a month for the 4 of us. Ned and Amy took the top floor, Raelyn got the main floor, and I took the basement. We still shared the kitchen and living room, but contrary to most roommate stories, we all got along great and never had any problems. Until now, that is. I don't even know what to call the current situation, though, if I'm being honest. All of this started maybe a month or so ago. It's summer now, so we're all off school and working at our various jobs to scrape together a bit of cash before the next semester starts. The extra free time had meant that we had time to start organizing the house a little bit better. In the back of the laundry room, tucked away behind the furnace, there's a door that's maybe 5 feet tall at most. It opened onto a small storage room that until a month ago was stuffed full of boxes, luggage bags, shelves, and miscellaneous junk. Raelyn and Ned wanted to clean the room out and make it into something of a secret hideout, calling it either the speakeasy or the bunker. It took Raelyn a few days, but quick enough the room was cleared and all the junk moved into the garage. The bunker, as Raelyn always referred to it, had cold, rough concrete floors, patchwork brick walls painted a mossy green in places, and a ceiling of exposed insulation crisscrossed with twisted pipes and wires. A small crawl space that was even lower than the main room led off into a space under the stairs that no light seemed to reach. Raelyn, the broke university student he is, or was, I guess, decided not to furnish the room with anything aside from a small table and 4 chairs arranged in a circle around it. The room looked creepy, no matter who you asked, but everyone had to admit it was still pretty cool regardless. Something that has to be said about Raelyn and Ned is that they're, well, were 2 of the biggest social butterflies I've ever met. They'd officially throw parties about once a month, but there were almost always people over more days than there weren't, especially Friday and Saturday. The bunker was admittedly a nice place to retreat from a party, have a shot, swap stories about who was hitting on who, which girls were single, that kind of thing. The oddness didn't begin until about a week after the bunker was clear. One night, some random day of the week, Tuesday maybe, I'd come home from work late and popped my bike into the back door. I stepped inside and didn't hear any voices. Nobody over tonight, I thought to myself as I descended the stairs to my room. My rooms are technically a separate suite, so I have my own door that leads to my space, at the start of the hallway that leads to the furnace, laundry room, and the bunker. I stopped as I was about to put the key into the main door. Over the low humming of the furnace, I could make out a sound that was faint coming from down the hall. Singing, maybe? Raelyn liked to sing when he was drunk, and He was drunk more often than not, so I presumed he was drunkenly doing some laundry down the hall and shrugged it off, going inside. I play keyboard and guitar and like to record and mix my own music, so after a quick dinner, I sat down to work on some music editing and shut the world out for a few hours. I stay up late, so I decided around 11 to do some laundry. I took my headphones off and took my basket out to the laundry room when I heard it again, the singing. It was definitely Raelyn singing, somewhat muffled and somewhat quiet, but singing nonetheless, singing from the bunker. I couldn't tell what the song was, but Raelyn had some odd taste in music. I shrugged it off and threw my laundry into the machine. As soon as I banged the washer lid shut, the singing stopped, and I looked at the bunker door. I took a few steps over and knocked quietly. "Yes," Raelyn called through the door. I opened the door and the room was pitch black, the single light bulb dangling from the ceiling being off, with only the light coming in from the laundry room to light it. Raelyn was leaned back in a chair, his arms crossed and his legs propped on another. He was still dressed in the business casual work clothes he typically wore, and a half-empty bottle of cheap wine was on the table in front of him. "What you doing?" I asked, looking briefly around the cold, dark room. He didn't answer me, aside from nodding his head towards the bottle on the table, and then returning his eyes to mine. "All right," I said, breaking eye contact and giving a half-awkward smile as I shut the door behind me. Granted, me and Raelyn were never super close, but when we did chat, he was always a lot more animated and chatty, especially if he'd had something to drink beforehand. The silence was odd, but I'd seen him fall into a few contemplative states before, so I didn't pay much attention to it. The next week was pretty much the same as usual. People came, people went. Every few nights I would hear the faint singing coming from down the hall, mixed in with the hum of the furnace or the drumming of the washing machine. The next odd event came maybe a week after the singing. I was laying on the couch in the living room, flipping randomly through YouTube videos, when I sat up with a sudden start to a voice behind me. "Hey Sam, how was work?" Raelyn said, standing at the door of the living room with a beer in each hand and a smile on his face. "Hey, sorry, you scared me. It was good, pretty slow," I replied with a quick smile. "Beer?" Raelyn asked, holding out the can for me. "Sure, thanks. How was work for you today?" I asked, but received no reply. I turned around after a few seconds to see that Raelyn was gone. I shook it off and went back to watching videos, trying to push the odd feeling out of my head. Now, you might ask what was so weird about that, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know Raelyn. The fact he had just appeared was what unnerved me. Raelyn isn't fat per se, but he definitely isn't thin. Long story short, you can always hear him when he's around. He's always blustering or stomping around or cursing at something, so to have him appear completely silently threw me for a loop. At this point, I was definitely feeling odd, and would only do my laundry during the day, trying whatever I could to keep away from Raelyn's bunker. I also kept a wary eye on the man himself, as he seemed to have become cheerier in the past 2 weeks. Where before he was a social but often gruff butterfly, he was now nothing but smiles and small talk whenever you saw him, and would have people over almost every night, if he could manage it. The last straw that finally made me tell someone what was going on was a Friday night that I'd come home from work and entered through the front door. I found Raelyn laying on the couch watching some old war movie on TV. I had a brief chat with him before I went back to the basement, stopping briefly to grab a drink from the fridge. I froze halfway down the stairs and my heart began to race. I heard the singing. I must have stood paralyzed on that staircase for a good 5 minutes, trying to rationalize how Raelyn could have made it downstairs and past me. Try as I might, there was absolutely no way he could have soundlessly gone behind me while I was opening the fridge. I would have seen him. Slowly, legs trembling, I walked backwards up the stairs and returned to the living room. couch was empty, TV still on. I looked around me, eyes wide. Was I going insane, I asked myself. I returned to the basement stairs again and slowly descended. Halfway down, the faint singing could be heard again. I fumbled in my pocket for my keys, hands shaking, and slammed my door open so quickly that I surprised even myself. I immediately took out my phone and texted Ned and Amy, asking them if they'd noticed Raelyn acting weird in the last few weeks. Both of them replied that they hadn't really, aside from the fact that he seemed happier. They never heard the singing, I thought to myself. Ned knew Raelyn better than I did, so I asked if he could talk to Raelyn and ask him how things were going, to which he agreed. I felt a bit better at that point, after which doubt began to creep in. He's what? Happy? Quiet? And has started singing? What the hell is creepy about that? I couldn't rationalize my fear to myself. Something was off, though, but I couldn't put my finger on what exactly it was. As I got into bed, I received a final text from Ned asking where Raelyn was, and when I told him he was in the bunker, he replied that him and Amy would go chat with him. I woke up the next morning, having tossed and turned all night, unable to get to sleep, with one or two nightmares that consisted of nothing but Raelyn singing his strange song in his strange room. I emerged from the basement late in the afternoon and found my roommates all busily cleaning up the house. Right, Saturday, party night, I thought to myself. Everyone said good morning as I made myself some coffee, and Ned winked at me when the two weren't looking. I sighed in relief, hoping that maybe I wasn't crazy, and that Ned could fill me in later on how the conversation had went. I helped with some of the cleaning before parking myself on the couch to wait for the party to start. I lost myself binge-watching some shows on Netflix. By 9 o'clock, the party was in full swing with maybe some 30 or 40 people over at the house. People were in the backyard having a fire. Some people were listening to records in the living room, and I'll admit I was pretty buzzed at that point. After chatting with the people around the fire for a bit, I got the impulse to bring out my guitar. And before you say it, I know, I'm one of those guys. I stumbled back inside and made it halfway down the basement stairs before my heart turned to ice in my chest and my stomach dropped. It was the singing, but it wasn't just one voice. It was three. It sounded as though Amy and Ned were both down there, joining in the chorus. No, I said to myself as I rushed back upstairs. The room spun around me as I rushed back into the kitchen where someone asked if I was all right. It wasn't just someone who asked if I was all right, though. It was Roland. They say we all cope with fear in different ways, sometimes in pretty stupid ways, and the way I coped that night was by drinking myself into oblivion. The rest of the night became a blur as I poured as much alcohol into my stomach as I could possibly manage. I faintly remember hearing Raelyn tell a few people at the party that they should check out his bunker, but as far as I could remember, I was too gone to care. I woke up the next day with the sun shining bright on my face. I'd slept in the hammock out back. I checked my phone to find that it was almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and saw a few texts from my friends saying what a great time they'd had last night at the party. My head was pounding, and when I stood up, my stomach immediately betrayed me, and I puked all over the ground. I managed to stumble back downstairs through the mess of empty beer cans and Solo cups that littered, well, everything, and made it to my bed. My back hurt, my head hurt, my stomach hurt, everything hurt. I fell back into a terrible sleep that was nothing but nightmares. Nightmares of strange singing from the strange door, with infinite voices, the voices of the entire world joined to the chorus, drowning out my smallest thoughts. It wasn't a dream. God, I wish it was a dream. I woke up again when it was dark. It was pitch black outside of the tiny basement windows, but the noise was overwhelming. The singing of dozens of voices was echoing throughout the entire house. I tried to turn on the lights, but they didn't work. I checked my phone. No internet, no signal, no nothing. Just singing. The singing of 40 voices was joined together, but unlike before, it wasn't coming from the bunker. It was coming from right outside my door. I stood before the door and let the tidal wave of fear and sound wash over me, which was interrupted by a knocking at the door. "Sam, come have a drink with us. I want to show you something in the bunker. Everyone says it's awesome." Roland's voice echoed through the house, barely audible over the swelling chorus. That was 3 days ago. The knocking starts back up every hour or so, and Roland's voice rises over the chorus to invite me out into the hallway. The sun doesn't come up anymore. The singing never stops now. It's always dark outside the windows. My phone's dead, my computer's dead, there's no power. I'm not even scared anymore. It's too loud to sleep, it's too loud to be scared. My lighter's running out of fuel, so pretty soon I won't even be able to watch the dancing little light in my hand. I don't even know why I wrote all this. They've started singing to me recently, but it's not even singing anymore. It's just the same chorus, over and over and over again. Where, oh where is Quiet Sammy? Quiet Sammy can't be saved. Where, oh where is Quiet Sammy? Quiet Sammy, quiet grave. That's me. I'm Sam. Quiet Sam. If you read this, do not try to find me. She's in the shadows, watching with burning eyes, anywhere and everywhere. No matter how far I go or where I am, she's there, watching. I'll try to explain what happened. It started with a walk in the woods. I usually go there to clear my head, but this time was a bit different. Life has been difficult. My father, the only consistent figure in my life, passed away a few months before. My relationship with my girlfriend broke down. I was working as much as I could, but I could never keep up with my debt. Life was becoming a landslide, and I had the intention to end it. What better place than the woods? It was a beautiful day. I went for a walk with a backpack filled with rope and a pre-tied noose. I found a tree off the beaten path I could tie myself to. I expected a dog walker would find me at some point. They always seem to find the bodies. I was securing the noose to a branch when the puppy found me. I didn't recognize the breed. It had shaggy black fur with a faint silver ridge along the spine and beautiful, burning amber eyes. It looked at me and I felt ashamed. It seemed too young to be walking free in the woods, and it must have been lost. I untied the noose and climbed down from the tree. The pup stood waiting, its tail wagging. I knelt beside it and gave it a stroke of the head. It had no collar. He could have been lost or abandoned. "All right, boy, what are you doing out here?" I asked. He wagged his tail and licked my hand. There was some movement amongst the bushes. I called out to see if its owner was nearby, but got no response. The weather began to turn. Heavy gray clouds quickly filled the sky, and thunder rumbled through the trees. The air became thick with the storm energy. "We should get you somewhere safe," I decided, taking the pup back to my car. That was when I started noticing things were strange. The rain began to come down, drumming heavily on the car roof. The once beautiful day became dark. I decided to drive towards a vet I knew locally. If they couldn't take him in, they could surely suggest someone who would. They can check for a chip and maybe find the owners. I put the puppy in the passenger seat of my car. As I drove out of the car park, a flash of lightning showed something amongst the trees. A silhouette of a deer or a large dog, maybe, barely distinguishable from the shadows. I drove on. With the next lightning flash, the creature was closer, just off the side of the road. It could have been a man, or it was something four-legged but facing me. Two embers ignited in what could have been a pair of eyes. I didn't feel like waiting to find out what was watching me. I sped up and pulled out onto the main road. As I drove, the pup fidgeted in excitement, sniffing at the seat and playfully mouthing at my hand as I tried to hold him in place. I went to the vet only to find them closed. I searched my phone for dog rescue homes, but there was nothing nearby. "Looks like you're coming home with me, boy," I told him. I think he looked happy about that. Maybe I was projecting. Lightning flashed again. If I was going to take him home, I thought I'd better stock up on some food. It would require dipping into my overdraft, but at this point I didn't really care about anything but this dog. I stopped at my local shop and left him inside the car. At least I thought I did. While I was at the checkout buying a single tin of dog food and some treats, he appeared yapping at my feet. "You can't bring dogs in here," the miserable sleep-deprived shopkeeper snapped at me. I didn't. Sorry," I stumbled back. I scooped him up under my arm and went back to the car with my shopping. The door was locked. He must have snuck out before I shut the door. I was sure he was still inside when I locked it, though. I saw him through the window. I must have been wrong. I couldn't claim to be in the clearest state of mind, given my original plans for the day. I bundled him back in the car with the shopping. Despite not necessarily being a good boy, I told him that he was, and tore open the bag to invite him to a treat. I started my car, and there was another flash of lightning. It cast a shadow over the road where the thing stood watching me, eyes burning. It was getting closer, close enough to make me afraid. I floored it, pulling away from the shop and into the road without even looking, my tires spinning to find traction. I checked the rearview mirror as I sped away to see if the shadowy creature was giving chase, but I saw nothing. I looked forward, and with a flash of lightning, it was there in the middle of the road. Two eyes burning bright as fire hovered in the shadows of an old oak tree. The creature was at one with the darkness, appearing only in the shadow of the flickering lightning. In the brief moment of shadow, I could just make out faint wisps of eerie pale glow weaving through the void. My eyes were unable to make sense of the shapes. I jumped on the brakes, forcing the car behind me to screech to a halt. The puppy tumbled forward and into the footwell with a yelp. "What are you doing?" the driver shouted from behind me. I ignored him and helped the puppy back onto the seat. He wagged in excitement. I looked around for the beast, but there was no sign of it. The lightning had stopped. The rain was lightening now, and the dark clouds were rolling away as quickly as they came, letting the daylight through. The road before me was clear. The driver behind me sounded his horn. He didn't see anything. "You okay, boy?" I asked. He seemed unconcerned about anything that was happening in the world. "We should get home," I said. I drove through the town, wary of every shadow. I felt like I was being watched, but I couldn't see whatever was watching me. Every flicker of light or patch of darkness put me on edge. Car headlights reflected off the wet road and cast images onto my mind. I began to doubt my sanity. I was heading home for shelter and safety, but I'd never felt safe there before. I lived in a room in a drafty old red brick Victorian house riddled with damp. I was overdue on rent to the landlady, Miss Whitaker, who was a harsh old woman hoarding money to take to the grave. She didn't allow noise or visitors, and she certainly didn't allow pets. Encountering her with the puppy in my arms was as terrifying as whatever was stalking me, because at least I knew Miss Whitaker was real. But there I was, the noose still in my backpack. I just needed to help out this dog before I could go back to my original plan. Why should I care about anything else? By the time I got home, the clouds had mostly parted, and we were getting the last of the afternoon sunshine. The daylight put me at some ease. I picked up the pup and its food and rushed into the house, hoping to get to the stairs before Miss Whitaker noticed me. Too slow. She appeared behind me in the gloomy hallway as I was halfway up the stairs. "Shouldn't you be at work?" she asked in a tone that was searching for a problem. "Day off," I replied without turning around, hoping she hadn't spotted the puppy. "Oh, I hope it's payday off. Rent is due," she said with suspicion. "Of course," I said, and continued walking upstairs. "What is that you've got there?" she asked. I turned to face her, resigned to revealing the puppy, but when I turned, the puppy wasn't in my arms. I looked around at the floor and saw no sign of it. Miss Whitaker had a ghostly appearance. Her gray hair and pale face were monochrome in the drab darkness of the hallway. She looked at me impatiently, and eventually I replied, "Nothing. It's just some shopping." Nothing too expensive, I hope. You need to pay my rent, she snapped. Then I saw it again. Behind Miss Whittaker in the shadows lurked the beast. Its flaming eyes drew up behind her. The shadow grew, almost submerging her in a shadowy void. For a moment, I hoped it would pull her in. Miss Whittaker said something, but I wasn't listening to her, concerned only with the specter in the shadows. I turned and rushed to the bottom of the stairs, but Miss Whittaker recoiled from me. I slapped at the light switch and the hallway brightened, the creature disappearing. Then I ran back up to my room. I slammed the door behind me and put the light on, then rushed over to the debris of dirty washing and litter to the window to pull the curtains open, exposing the remaining day to erase any darkness from the bedroom. I put the puppy on the floor and suddenly felt disgusted with myself. The room was filthy. Dirty dishes were stacked on the bedside table. Every surface was caked with dust. I could barely see the carpet for my mess. This wasn't a fit place for a dog to live. I had the immediate urge to tidy up. I cleaned a small space in the corner and emptied half the tin of dog food onto a clean bowl. While the puppy ate, I tidied up. Then I heard stomping up the stairs, Miss Whittaker shouting out, "What is wrong with you? Why have you put the lights on? That is my electricity you're wasting." She then banged on the door. "Have you got the lights on in there too? Open up." "Sorry, I just need some light. I'm tidying." "You? Ha!" This was the closest I had ever come to hearing her laugh. "Turn it off now, or you can move out. Please, just leave me alone for a bit." She banged on the door again. "Off, now." When she noticed the light remains on, she said, "Fine, I'll sort it myself," and stomped back downstairs. The puppy was eating happily. I found a half-full bottle of water and emptied it into a small dish for him to drink. I watched him while sitting on the edge of my bed. Then the puppy had his fill and came over to sit by my feet. I lifted him onto the bed, and he got comfortable, resting his head on my thigh as his amber eyes looked up at me. He began to sleep as I stroked the top of his head, and it seemed at that moment we were both content. Then the lights went out. Miss Whittaker must have switched my electricity off at the fuse box. The fading daylight from outside the window was not enough to extinguish the shadows in the corner by the wardrobe. Flaming eyes slowly appeared from nowhere, as if the darkness was a doorway. The monster was in my room. I picked up the puppy and edged away along the bed. Soon my back was against the wall and I had nowhere else to go. The fiery eyes grew closer. Ethereal wisps danced from the darkness until my eyes could finally make sense of their shape and movement. I could see a vague outline of 4 limbs walking, hackles raised down its back. A muzzle snarled at me, dripping with drool. The great hound became clearer beyond its spectral hue, bigger than any dog I'd ever seen. It had a pale streak down its back like the puppy. It padded beyond the shadow to show thick, shaggy black fur. It was ready to pounce at any minute. It gave a guttural growl, exposing great white fangs. While I recoiled helplessly, the puppy squirmed free and clambered down my leg to the floor, the ridge of pale fur down its back showing white with ethereal light. It ran over to the great black beast, which never broke its gaze away from me. Then, as if breaking from a trance, it looked down at the pup, lowering its snout towards it. "No!" I shouted. I couldn't let it devour the helpless thing. "No!" I shouted again. I picked up the lamp from my bedside table in a pathetic attempt to brandish any sort of weapon. The beast looked at me with contempt, then looked back down at the puppy. It lowered its snout and licked it across its face. The puppy brushed up against the monster and wagged its tail. The great hound inspected the pup with sniffs and licks of maternal care. The mother then picked the puppy up by the scruff of the neck, and they walked into the shadow, fading into wisps of spectral light before disappearing. The puppy appears every so often to play, no matter where I am, home, work, even when I was in the police interview room. The mother is never far away. They usually disappear back into the shadows before anyone else can see them. Usually, those who have seen them don't live long to tell about it. I know they think they're protecting me, but they didn't need to kill Mrs. Whittaker. I didn't notice for a few days until the smell crept through the floorboards. At her door, I heard the buzzing of flies. I called the police to break into her room, and they found her mauled. The coroner ruled that it was a dog attack, although they couldn't explain how a dog got in and out of the locked room. The mother never fully comes out of the shadows, but she watches me. In the corner of my eye, I'll catch its fiery gaze. I don't think she means me harm, but I've seen what she can do, and it's hard not to be afraid. The pup is a good boy, but they're both overprotective. I've seen their eyes appear whenever anyone angers or upsets me. I know she intends to kill them. Death seems like nothing to her. My supervisor at work was found dead in the stockroom after he criticized the time I had taken off due to my mental health. I admit it got to me. He was mauled like Mrs. Whitaker. The hound also appeared after my ex-girlfriend came over and demanded her TV back. She forced her way in, and I was desperate for her to leave, so I ended up giving it to her. But it wasn't about the TV. She was just insistent on arguing. She didn't make it out of the house. I tried to stop them. After the deaths, I had to run. I'm innocent, I swear it, but if the police turn up to arrest me, I can't imagine what the hounds would do to them. I found somewhere secluded to live. I won't say where, but it seems mostly safe, and I'm content with a simple life off the grid. I have had occasional troubles. Some men tried to break into the caravan where I've been staying. That didn't last long. I had to bury their bodies in a ditch one night. The dogs were just protecting me. At least I'm not suicidal anymore. What does that say about me, that I'm willing to live even when I'm such a risk to others? As long as people leave me alone, they'll be safe. I can't control what comes from the shadows. Hi guys. Not sure if this is the right place for it, but I thought that if anyone would be interested in my story, then it'd probably be the people here. So I moved into a new place recently. It's a pretty good spot, nice and quiet, right at the edge of town. The rent's really decent as well, especially for a newly renovated apartment in this area of London. Apparently the building's been around for ages, and the location isn't super ideal for a lot of people, so they had to keep the rent low. No complaints from me though. I don't have a car, and I can cycle pretty easily to the nearby station. Moving in was straightforward enough, and I'm pretty satisfied with the place so far. Here's where it gets a little weird. Shortly after settling in, I noticed that a patch of loose carpet was right at the threshold between where the bedroom connects to the living room. Now normally, I would have just called the landlord to fix it, but it didn't seem like a big enough deal at the time. Thought I'd take care of it myself, save some cash in the process, right? Upon looking at the carpet more closely, I found something a bit unusual. There was a little gap where the carpet seemed to sag. When I pulled the carpet back, I found a little patch, no wider than my fist, where it looked like the floorboard had decayed, revealing a subfloor beneath. It was a bit like poking a hole in the top layer of foil on one of those prepackaged meals. A little peephole revealing everything that was beneath. I'm a pretty curious guy by nature, so couldn't help but shine a torch in there and have a quick peek. I wasn't expecting much, but to my surprise, right beneath the hole, there sat an unassuming little object. It was a squarish shape, which barely stood out amongst the dust, dirt, and mold. When I first saw it, I thought it was a tablet, an iPad, or a Kindle or something. With a coat hanger, some mounting tape, and a lot of practice, I eventually managed to fish it out. Out in the light, I could see that it was in fact not an iPad, like I had hoped, but a little hardcover-bound book. Though the exterior was essentially eaten away by black mold, I could still make out a single word impressed upon the faded leather cover. Journal. Inside, the pages were in pretty bad shape. The first half of the journal was irretrievable, mold-stained and practically crumbling to the touch, and I could barely leaf through them without causing irreversible damage. The back half wasn't much better, with a good portion of it torn out or, strangely enough, burned. In addition, a lot of the writing itself was illegible, either crossed out, faded, or too frantically scrawled to be comprehensible. Around the margins and in the spaces between the words, I could make out strange sketches, shapes of figures that are hard to describe. I'll see if I can upload some photos later. The contents are unusual, if not disturbing. It's a little disparate because of how much of the text is unreadable, but I've transcribed the parts I could make out and ordered them chronologically here. Let me know what you guys think. Journal entry. Monday, April 4th, 1953. Recently I've been feeling unwell. Upon returning from my latest trip to the east, I found that my whole body aches, and I'm constantly stricken by bouts of weakness and fatigue. I cannot stand for long, as the world spins when I'm upright. Most concerning, I seem to be experiencing hallucinations, strange visual distortions, which addle both my mind and my depth perception. Stranger still, I no longer dream. Doctors have attributed it to an exotic ailment, exposure to miasmas or viral disease, an insect bite maybe. The source varies with each practitioner I meet. I don't know when this started. I don't recall the reason that I went to Asia in the first place. Friday, April 29th, 1953. Symptoms have descended upon me quickly, like a fog. In addition, my recollection has become hazy as well. I'm unable to recall what it feels like to be without malaise. I have no recollection of my travels now. If it were not in this journal, I would not know that I had traveled at all. The doctors attribute this state of being to a range of ailments. It differs with every visit. Bilious fever, illness in the ears or eyes or brain, even hormonal imbalances because my state of paranoia and neurosis. Yet, the tests have been fruitless. Physically, my body is not inconsistent with the body of a perfectly healthy human being. At this point, I care not about the cause. The symptoms are all I experience, and the brief respite from these afflictions is my only desire. Wednesday, June 15th, 1953. As my condition worsens, more unique symptoms have come to the surface. In the past, I have written in my journal to distract myself from the turbulent environment around me, but now, when I must put pen to paper, I've been unable to conjure neither the words nor the images necessary to describe my past experiences. I can only focus on my present state, of the world which appears before my sensations in the here and now. In the future, I might look back on these entries and recall this affliction which had ailed me for so long. But I'm doubtful. Thoughts of the future are becoming hazy also. Sunday, June 19th, 1953. These visions, they have only grown in vividness and intensity. No longer are they simply the distortions in shapes and colors in the ordinary objects. Now, entirely new objects have emerged, like balloon animals being inflated. Thin figures billow outward, creating uneven, grotesque forms. Almost always they're bulbous, organic things, bulging and pulsating before my eyes. July 2nd, 1953. Day uncertain. As I grow more accustomed to these visions, their features become more distinguished. What once was just vague, opaque blobs have now become strangely defined substances, or perhaps even organisms of a sort, perhaps even flora. Although they vary greatly in shape, color, and size, it is clear that there exists a certain resemblance between some more than others. It's possible they even belong to specific and distinct genre. But enough of this. To categorize hallucinations like they were undiscovered zoological species is an act that even my addled brain can recognize as insanity. July 1953. They've begun moving now. Soundlessly they creep across my sightline, some locomoting like caterpillars, while others slink on wireframe feet. These feet-thin feelers, reminiscent of an ant's antenna, poke and probe the ground ahead, as if searching for stable ground. Dozens of these feelers extend from below their bodies, globular, ovid masses which appear as smooth as they are pliant. Others sit upon stem like detached eyes floating in place. On more than one occasion, I've seen small ones collide, merge, and become one entity. Some of the larger ones, in fact, appear as a collection of small globules, orbs upon its body so numerous that it simulates fur. I can only wonder if they're a singular organism or simply a congregation of them moving as one. In these pages, I see that I have once referred to them as flora. I now see that that was an error. Yet neither are they fauna. They're a sort of combination, not quite animal, not quite plant. July 1953. They're everywhere. I've seen them creep across my page. I've seen them loom outside my window. They're not visions. I've reached out and touched them. The one I felt was chewing gum colored. It was warm and fleshy to the touch. 1953. Perhaps they've always been there. Silent, numerous, invisible to the human eye. Perhaps my affliction is not an illness, but insight. I've gained access to a world truer than my own, but this is no blessing. To watch and feel these things creep over my body, pulse on my bed, cast their shadows over my building, it is something no man should see. Date uncertain. I awoke with one of them in my mouth. It crawled out so easily, as mundane as a laborer leaving their family home for work. It left a slick and pungent trail behind. Tasted like gasoline. How long had it resided within me? How many of these creatures had I unknowingly ingested in my lifetime? My throat burns as I retch. Amongst the remains of my last meal, things shift and slither. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Date uncertain. To my family, if I had one, please burn this diary if you were ever to find it. I would do it myself, but I fear to exit my drawing room. In fact, I'm no longer able to stand at all. Fixed to my writing chair, I can only sprawl upon the page, gazing out of my window to watch the world become unrecognizable before my eyes. I see them. Even when I close my eyes, I see them. They live beneath my eyelids, beneath my skin. I fear that they see me. Have you ever found something that's just incredible? Something so unreal, you can't help but wonder what event led to this item becoming intertwined with you. I'm not talking about a bottle cap or a piece of a plow. Hell, I'm not even talking about a pistol I found buried in the dirt when I was a kid. I'm talking about something mind-boggling. Not sure if that's the right word. Enough talking about it, though. Time to give you the story about my recent discovery. Most mornings during the fall, I deer hunt. Before you all jump down my throat about it, I only kill 2 a year. Only enough for me to eat. Times are tough, and a guy's gotta eat, you know? After I catch my 2, however, I still make my way out to my stand a few times a week. I enjoy sitting up there in the cool fall air, taking it all in. It's me and nature. No phones, no one, no real-life stuff. Plus, I enjoy seeing the deer, even if I'm not shooting at them. It was one of those days that I was sitting in the stand, taking in the sunrise when I heard it. Well, I guess I don't have to ask if that's the one that made the noise, I thought to myself, chuckling and betting with myself which tree fell this time. I'm sure it's that dead one that's right next to the fence this time. It's been on its last limbs for years. With my curiosity piqued and the sunrise over, I decided to climb down the stand and start my trek home. With my pack clinging to my shoulder and a pistol on my side, I made my way towards home while keeping an eye out for the fallen tree. Every tree I passed boosted my confidence in my assertion that the old dead tree finally gave way. Shortly after I find the old tree laying on its side, I take a little pride in my skill with assumptions. As I walk by, however, I notice that the tree is hollow on the inside, and the tree collapsed in on itself as it fell. Looking at the poor old tree, that's when I see it. The stump of the tree was not hollow. It's solid like a normal tree. Odd, I think. Termites must have gotten to it after it dried out. But the stump had something sitting inside of it. It's shards of some kind of pot. An old clay pot that was placed in this tree for a long time. Long enough for the tree to grow around it. How did that even happen? Thoroughly intrigued, I look through the pieces of the clay shattered in the stump, and the first thing that sticks out is it isn't clay. It's a piece of cloth, and a piece of thin rope around a circular piece of clay, which I presume was the top of the pot. The other eye-catching part of this is a large, round, flat piece of clay that appears to be the bottom of the pot. I know what you're thinking. Wow, pots have bottoms. What a fascinating thing to realize. Well, smartass, it's not that it's a bottom. Obviously, it has a bottom, but the symbol on the bottom is what caught my eye. A 5-pointed star with a tiny small star in each of the triangles of the star's end. A squiggly symbol, maybe meant to look like smoke if you squint at it just right. The engraving wasn't perfect. Still, it's a pretty interesting thing to put on the bottom of a clay pot. Even more so when you seal the pot with a cloth and put it in a tree. I decided to take it with me. At the very least, it would be an interesting trinket to show everyone at my dinner party. While putting the piece in my bag, one of the shards pricked my finger, letting a little drop of blood roll into the pack with the pieces. Once the house was inside, I was thinking of one thing. Is this pot worth something? It's clear that this thing is a relic, so who's to say it's not valuable to some institution or study or museum or another? Unsure of what to make of something's value, I decided to examine the piece again and see if I can find any clues to help me identify who made this thing and what it is. My immediate guess was that it was Native American or something. Did they even have clay-making abilities? Adding that to the list of things to Google when I got home. After a thorough inspection, I can't find anything that sets this apart from a standard clay pot at any store that sells clay pots, other than its weathered exterior. As I sat looking at it, I tried to piece things together in my mind. My mind jumps to, it looks like a pot from Zelda, but something tells me it probably looks a little different, what with its lack of cell shading and all. After noticing that I've been staring at these pieces for hours, I decide it might be time to put some effort somewhere else for the rest of the day. Nothing bothers me about the puzzle that's unfinished. It sticks in the back of my mind all day, thinking about what it could be. As I lay down in bed that night, I'm still thinking about that damn pot with the symbol, and it just doesn't make any sense. As I drift off to sleep, I see myself in a dream. Myself in a bed. My point of view in the dream is from the bedroom ceiling. My body lays there, still softly breathing in and out. That's when I see it, out of the corner of my eye. It's a figure. Short, pudgy man, slowly walking towards the bed. Not short, like short, like he couldn't see over the bed short. He waddled towards my unconscious body, all the while chanting, "I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming." Panicked, but unable to do anything, I watch as he puts his chubby little hand on the foot of my bed and pulls himself up. He peeks up onto the bed, and I feel violated as he looks at me, scanning my body with some kind of pleasure in his eye. I say eye because he only has the one in the middle of his round thumb head. Right as he's getting on top of me, he turns to look at me. Not the me in the bed, but the me in the ceiling, watching the horror unfold, all the while continuing to whisper. Leaping out of my bed, I realized it was only a dream. Wiping the sweat off my face and trying to catch my breath, my throat screams in pain and feels like I've swallowed a razor blade. Like I had my mouth open all night. Nothing some cough medicine wouldn't fix, I supposed. I jumped in the shower because I guess in all the excitement over the pot I forgot to take one last night and had dirt all over my clothes. Not even sure where I'd picked up that much dirt. Onward the day goes as I try to get this damn pot out of my head when it dawns on me. My brother was a history major in college. Maybe he'd know something about it. I take a picture of the symbol and give him a brief synopsis on what happened. It's almost no time before he texts me back, asking if I'm being for real. Why would I make this up? I reply back, annoyed at him obviously knowing something and not telling me. I can't be 100% sure, but from the evidence, I would say you found a witching pot, brother. Don't keep me in suspense, you know I don't have a clue what you're talking about. It's a pot for witch catching, you muggle. I'm serious, Zeke. Tell me what this thing is, please. Okay, I'm just messing with you. It's an ancient tradition that goes all the way back to the Romans, I think. When bad stuff was happening, they would do some kind of ritual and trap the insert bad thing here into the pot. Like Ganon, basically. That's encouraging, but I don't think the Romans were chilling in America. It goes back to the Romans, but the tradition has been around for all kinds of civilizations. African tribes, Chinese, Vikings, basically any civilization you can think of has something similar to it. Logically, the Native Americans probably did the exact same thing. They would make a container for evil forces and put the symbol of the earth spirit on the bottom of the container. I guess it worked like a magnet to lure it in. The thing usually gets trapped in the container and happily ever after for the good people. Okay, that doesn't really help, but at least I know what it is now. Thanks. Let me know if any evil spirits run around your house. So, as you probably guess, I wasn't really concerned about this, but it did make me a little unnerved, given the dream I'd had. Everything he said made some kind of sense. The symbol at the bottom was some kind of witch, demon, or hell, maybe some disease that was running through the people. They sealed the pot up with cloth and set it on the altar or something made out of the tree. Some years later, you get a tree with a pot in it. My throat continued to burn throughout the day with no help from the medicine. I finally stopped fighting it, and after a few hours I went back to bed, hoping to sleep it off. I woke up from an apparent nightmare that I can't remember having, but I do recognize that I'm talking as I awake. I hear myself mutter, "I'm here," but I don't have time to think about it before it hits me. Pain. Hot, sharp pain runs through my arms. That's when I realize I'm standing in my living room, over my living room table, the table with the pot. Except I've used the piece in my hand to carve a 5-pointed star on my forearm. I drop the shard of bloody clay and run to the bathroom to get a towel. It's only skin deep, but I'm bleeding like a son of a gun. As the bleeding stops, my mind catches up to the last few minutes of my life. I was carving that symbol into my arm. Why the hell was I doing that? I decided the pot was going in the trash. Bagging it up, I walked out the door with the clay remains. Still, my mind was coming back to what my brother had said. It was used to trap something bad. It was holding something bad, and the tree falling broke its prison. And there I went, stumbling along like an unlucky penny I am, and picked up the pot. He's coming. My unconscious mind tried to warn me of what was happening. Too dumb to realize, though. As I walked back in the house from throwing the pot in the trash, that was when I realized it. I was still holding the bag in my hand. I hadn't done anything with it. I can't make my hand let go. It won't let go of the bag. No matter how hard I tried, it won't let go. Not even when I jabbed at the star-shaped cut in my arm. Trembling with pain, it still held on. I got back to the table, and my arm seemed to work as normal as it dropped the pieces back where they'd been. I decided to write this all out, because what else am I going to do? I can't leave or fight. How can I fight something living in my body? I wanted to see my brother, but I can't. I won't do that to him. I'm not going to put him at risk if this thing can go from me to him. No way. Of course, I don't know if that's how this works at all, or if he goes wherever he wants to. Whoever reads this shall be my plaything. I picture it saying that as it watches me type this out. Hell, maybe it's even making me type this out. Maybe this is what he wants. Maybe it thrives off people knowing about him and being scared of him. I'm talking crazy now. I just wanted to tell you guys what happened so you know if you find something similar. I don't know what you could do to avoid it, obviously, so I guess I really don't have a point to writing this. Actually, when did I decide to write this? How long have I been writing this? I don't even remember the things here happening at all. I was just walking back from hunting and I saw that a tree had fallen. What's going on? I know I can't stop myself from posting this because it's not me actually typing. It's gotta be him. I'd say don't read this, but since this is the end, I'm assuming you already have. I'm sorry for that. Honestly, maybe nothing will happen to you, but if it does, I can't help but think of my own preservation and wonder if he'll leave me alone if he jumps to someone else. I can't stop from posting this if I wanted to anyway, so I guess I'll hope for the best. I think I'm fixing to go back to sleep, and this might be the last time. I'm sorry to whoever sees this, but I think he's here.